Hey everyone, I've been focusing actually on playing games more lately rather than just going and getting pickups. And one of the games I've been playing lately is Subnautica. I just finished it and I thought it was just really cool, so I wanted to kind of give you guys a little review for it today. Now, what is the first thing I could say about this game? It is a underwater survival game at its core. And something about the front of it really never gave me that impression when I first saw it in the store. You know, I saw this kind of cartoonish looking character here, and it just almost looked like a children's game for me. I'm like, what is this? Subnautica, we got some guy here was like teaching you about the fishes and the coral reefs or something. It almost looked like an educational game or something to me. That was just my first impressions. So I never really thought much about it. But then I forget where I heard about it more. Maybe I just saw it mentioned briefly, and it looked like something that was actually going to be right up my alley. Now, I wouldn't call this like a survival horror game, because it's not really scary per se, but if you really immerse yourself in it, it can be scary. Especially for people like me, one of the things I'm afraid about is drowning, especially like in the ocean. And the premise of this game is your character, he's on a spaceship going somewhere, we don't know, but in the very first part of the game, you're kind of crash landing onto this water planet basically, and you survive barely, and there's some other survivors around, but you don't see them right away. You're just by yourself, and you have nothing with you, and you have to basically use the craft machine in your little escape pod that you fell down with to make stuff to kind of survive. So that, in that way, it's very much a survival game. And the horror part comes if you do like the hardcore survival. There's several different versions or game modes you can play with this, ranging from like very easy where you don't need to worry about anything to like hardcore mode, I think they call it, where you have to worry about getting enough food to eat, getting enough water to drink, and you're like thirsty like constantly. You're having, obviously you can't drink the ocean water, so you're having to like purify water with different chemicals and stuff in your little life pod. So it can be the beginning of the game can be very grindy actually. You're just trying to eke out enough materials to survive. So you're going around under the ocean and grabbing stuff, and eventually you have enough materials where you can venture out a little farther into the ocean, and there is no land anywhere. All you have the only thing solid to stand on when you first start this game is the crash landed ship that's not too far from you. Other than that, you're on your own. You're grabbing animals to eat if you're lucky, you're grabbing plants, you're grabbing anything you can to make more materials out of. And eventually you'll be able to go farther underwater. You'll be able to dive deeper, after you get some more materials to build like scuba gear with basically. And eventually you can even build little like submarines and stuff like that to get around faster. Now, I wouldn't call it like a survival horror game, in the classic sense where you're fighting zombies and stuff, basically, or monsters. The horror in this game really comes from like the environment, and that is because you have very limited air in this game. You cannot stay underwater very long. you basically can only dive a certain depth when you first start the game, especially. And if you don't get back up to the surface enough, you drown. And I cannot tell you how many times I was down at the, maybe 30 feet down, and I'm gathering, materials on the ocean floor. And then, oops, I misgauged my air, and I'm trying to get back up to the surface, try to get up, and I see that light up above me, but then you just run out of air and you die. And the game doesn't really punish you for dying too much. I think you just kind of lose like whatever you gathered most recently, and then you kind of just go back to your life pod or wherever your kind of checkpoint is. So in that respect, it is kind of a survival horror game if you're scared by that kind of thing. And also you can get into some very claustrophobic situations, especially when you're down sometimes in these underwater caves, basically, and it's very easy to just get lost, and you run out of air and you just die in the darkness. It's kind of messed up when you think about it. But yeah, I would have never expected this game to kind of be like that, and it's such a unique game for that reason. I don't think they've ever made another game where the whole world is just like an ocean planet and you're just fighting the environment, basically. Now there are kind of monsters in the game too. I mean, some of these creatures that you encounter, especially deep down, deep in the ocean, they can be pretty scary, especially if you got your headset on or your surround sound going, and they sound scary. You'll hear like roar, roar. These creatures make these horrible shrieks and noises. So it's really fun in that way. And there is a story too. It's a very loose story though. You don't really know what's going on. You're kind of having to like figure out what to do most of the time. So it is kind of that kind of game where you're just like, sometimes you're just like, okay, what am I supposed to do next? Where am I supposed to go? It doesn't make sense because this world in the game is so big. You can just be exploring underwater for hours and maybe not even, find out anything else you're supposed to do in the story. You're just like, what's going on? Do I need like a certain material? Do I need to build something to advance the story? In that respect, I'd say the game kind of falters a little bit. This isn't a AAA game, I would say. It's more, I wouldn't say it's like a B title, but, well, maybe I would actually. Maybe I would say it's kind of a B title. It does have a lot of issues. The things I don't like about this game, like I mentioned earlier, first thing's the cover. The cover looks dumb. And I think they could have sold a lot more, even if they just put this artwork that's on the back here with, the kind of giant sea creature and your little character there looking up at him. That kind of describes what the game is like much more than this front cover, because you're exploring, you're seeing these like really crazy things sometimes, and I think this is one of their first problems that they have the game. Second thing with the game is it is not stable. I crashed tons of times. I don't know what it is exactly. I think they just have some problem where they can't render things quick enough for where you're moving. Like you'll be moving into a new area, and sometimes it'll just appear like like there's nothing around you, and you're like, what happened? Well, there's all I see is space. And then like after maybe like 10 seconds, sometimes you'll finally see like the things popping in around you that are supposed to be there, like the coral and the whatever caves and plants are supposed to be around you. They just pop in a little later just because they can't load things fast enough. And I think that that is where you get into the crashes too. I got to a point where I could almost tell when it was going to crash, because I could kind of feel the game like starting to chug, and then boom, done. You just crash, and that sucked. But I kind of got used to it after a while. I almost like went at a little slower pace at times, just like, okay, I got to slow down here and let things load so it doesn't crash. But other times you wouldn't even expect it either. Like, I don't know, you'd just be like hunting stuff and everything would be normal, and then all of a sudden it just crashes and goes back to your PS4 title screen. So that was probably the most annoying thing in the game. It was just the stableness. And I'd crash and I'd reload the game, and often I'd say at least like half the time I'd load back into my last save and it would just be a black screen. I'm like, what is going on here? This is a modern game? Like this is like, quality control 101 they're messing up with. It's just a mess. But that didn't detract like from me liking the game overall. It was just probably the thing I hated the most about it. And I actually had to just restart my PlayStation more than once so I could get this thing running. But besides all the technical errors, this game was really good, like really good. I'm glad that someone finally made a game like this, because I think back in the day I'd kind of imagine having like an underwater game, and they have made games like that in the past, but they've all been kind of meh, You've got like was it Aquanaut's Holiday, where you're just kind of swimming around, and there's one on the Wii too, Endless Ocean, I think. That was supposed to be like a really, really cool underwater game. And I played it a bit, but I must admit I got kind of bored after a little bit. Just because the immersion isn't there. What's really cool about Subnautica is the immersion factor, because it's all in first person. You have to really take care of all your needs in the game, eating, drinking. You don't have to sleep, but you can sleep, if you build a bed. And you really feel like you're in the world. That's what really makes this game cool. And I think the developers really excelled in that part. And they really excelled in just making the environment seem formidable. You always want to keep exploring, because you never know what you're going to find. There's all kinds of stuff to explore in this game. You could just swim around for hours, and you never know what's going to come. That's what's really cool about it. I don't know, this probably wasn't the best review I've done, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about the game a little bit and recommend it to you guys if it sounds like something interesting for you. But yeah, tell me if you played this, and if you played the second one, I think it's called, oh, I forget actually. I think it's more like in the Arctic zone or something. But if you play that one, let me know how it is, and tell me if that's worth getting too. Because I probably won't play it right now. I need a little break from swimming around underwater, but I definitely would like to try it someday. Anyways, guys, hope you're enjoying your games too, and I will talk to you later.